AM here in the Middle East. So I'm bringing an update based on all the current information that I have. So it's going to take some time, but we'll get through it. First, I'd like to go over the past 24 hours. So yesterday morning, we had basically 2 suicide drones impact the U.S. Embassy compound in Riyadh. There was a fire and kind of triggered a region-wide diplomatic breakdown. This also expanded into Oman, which is typically a diplomatic haven between Qatar and Oman. These are usually the mediators that bring all parties together. And in this case, Oman was attacked at the port of Salalah. This is a critical hub, a port, where a lot of cargo vessels have been rerouted. So the fact that this particular place was struck, and it's quite far from Iran, this is a major factor in trying to reroute cargo through the Middle East due to the Straits of Hormuz being closed. So it was struck by an Iranian ballistic missile, and this kind of stopped rerouting of cargo through Oman, and we'll see more traffic going through the Red Sea. Also yesterday, the IDF initiated forward defense maneuvers crossing the blue line into southern Lebanon to neutralize Hezbollah's remaining short-range rocket batteries. So now we've got the Israelis attacking not just Iran, but also into Lebanon to the proxies there. We had some night strikes. A third wave of stealth strikes targeted the IRIB state media headquarters in Tehran. The city is currently without power in several districts. And then 4 a.m. today, intelligence assets confirmed that Mojtaba Khamenei has been named the 3rd supreme leader by the junta of experts under IRGC protection, though he has not appeared in public. If you might recall, the supreme leader, the Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, was killed in the initial attack by Israeli and U.S. strikes. They named a second supreme leader. He was killed almost immediately within the first 12 hours. So this is the 3rd supreme leader to be named as a successor. We'll see how long he lasts. I would imagine that he is also a target. You can imagine that. I don't know if he volunteered for the job, but we'll see how that plays out over the next 48 hours or so. So just kind of a recap from the beginning, February 28th. This is when the conflict began. We had Operation Epic Fury, which was the U.S. named operation, and Roaring Lion, which was the Israeli operation. The leadership, the Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, was killed in the opening strikes in the Pasteur district. Along with him was the AFGS chief, Mousavi, and the intelligence minister were neutralized. From an infrastructure perspective, the coalition has successfully destroyed 90% of Iran's fixed air defenses and its naval headquarters in Bandar Abbas. Iranian retaliation, Iran has focused on economic hostage-taking by hitting Ras Laffan in Qatar, which is an LNG export hub, and Ras Tanura in Saudi, which is an oil hub, and they have successfully spiked global energy prices and forced a shutdown of 20% of global LNG. Internal in Iran, we have massive protests that have ignited in Kurdistan, Sistan, Baluchistan, and Tehran. The IRGC is having maximum force, using maximum force, but coalition strikes on police headquarters have crippled the regime's command over its internal security forces. So from an infrastructure perspective, for those of you that don't know, my name is Jonathan Paulette. Make sure you like and subscribe so that you get all these updates. I'm an oil and gas professional currently in the Middle East. I have been an oil and gas professional for 25 years. I work in upstream oil and gas, so I'm not in any downstream or refining or any of that, but upstream, which is drilling, completions, that sort of thing. But I'm currently located in the Middle East. I've spent 15 years working international and in 11 different countries. So I have a lot of experience in a lot of different environments. Obviously not in a war scenario, but I'm on the ground getting updates. So I'll bring those to you daily. So make sure you like and subscribe so that you can be notified of updates. If you do have any questions, I will take those in the chats. I am reading though from my notes, so I might miss a few. I apologize in advance. So also from the energy perspective, so Ras Laffan disabled, which is a total halt of LNG out of Qatar. Gas prices have soared in Europe. If you recall, Europe had basically had to seek alternate LNG sources after their North Sea pipeline was bombed, and they were no longer able to get supplied by Russia. So they sought out alternate sources that came out of Qatar, and now that Qatar is offline, that is a double hit, and it's February, so very unideal for the Europeans. Also, we have in Saudi a partial shutdown of the Ras Tanura. This is a 550,000 barrel per day facility, which is offline, partially offline, precautionary safety measures. We also have, from a logistics perspective, the port, Jebel Ali, which is throttled. So Berth 3 had a fire, and that paralyzed the world's busiest port. One of the world's busiest ports, I should say. Water. So in Qatar, Mesaid, a desalination plant was hit. So the intake was damaged. Zero water clock on at 5 days. I don't know that they'll see significant impact in terms of water. I think this is more of an industrial capacity water facility, but I'm not 100% on that. If anybody is familiar with this desalination plant, let me know. And defense, Fifth Fleet in Bahrain has been relocated. They were sitting ducks in the port, so the service facility was hit and the ships were dispersed into the Arabian Sea. From a food security standpoint in the Middle East, I'm going to rank these based on most secure to least secure. So we've got basically a siege economy right now here in the Middle East because the Straits of Hormuz have been essentially shut down, right? We're not getting any tanker traffic, whether it's oil or natural gas, and we're certainly not getting any cargo vessels through that region. A lot of it has to do with the fact that the insurance companies are either refusing to underwrite those vessels or the fact that the pricing, the premium is so high, it's like $500,000 a day. And there's no guarantee. There could be mines there, as well as Iranian attempts through drones to take out those vessels. And they have been broadcasting through VHF to say that, hey, the Straits of Hormuz are closed, don't go through here. So they're willing to, they've already proven that they're willing to attack any vessel traveling through there. But from a ranking of a siege economy, basically we can't get any kind of materials, food, that sort of thing, shipped in by sea because the Straits of Hormuz are closed. So ranking the country, Qatar ranked number 1 as the most prepared. They had a blockade back in 2017, kind of had a little bit of a geopolitical dispute. And due to that, they built a dairy and poultry, basically self-reliance. So massive greenhouse capacity, and they are the only ones with a siege playbook basically already written. So from a safety standpoint, Qatar, food safety standpoint, I should say, Qatar is ranked number 1, hands down. Also, I mean, they had the land border with Saudi that was blocked, and the only people that would trade with them during this blockade was Kuwait and Oman. Couldn't even get vessels from like Bahrain. I was living in Bahrain at the time, and I knew a lot of Qataris and Bahraini families that couldn't see each other. You know, Bahrainis had married into a Qatari family, and they couldn't even go to Qatar to see their family because of this blockade. So, but that's over now, but all that infrastructure still exists. Saudi Arabia, we have massive internal landmass, allows for significant wheat, dairy, and poultry production. As you drive through towards like Riyadh, it's kind of strange. You'll see like massive dairy farms, basically. So they have a Vision 2030 ag tech pivot, and it is now their greatest strategic asset. In the UAE, they're going to be ranked number 3, high-tech vertical farming. So their pure harvest is strong, but they have high consumption society with an 85% import dependency. So not very self-reliant, and they are requiring a very high import dependency on their food. Oman ranked number 4. Fisheries are strong, but the Salalah strike has kind of shattered their logistics hub status. They are in a little bit better of a position, I would say, because they are not on the interior of the Arabian Sea. They are outside, so they they do have a little bit more access to the world. And Kuwait, ranked number 5 as least prepared. 99% import dependency, geographically trapped at the top of the... I get a lot of trouble from people. I say Persian Gulf, and the Arabs don't like it, so in solidarity, the Arabian Gulf. The Arabian Gulf, that's where the Kuwait is located. And if the Saudi land bridge fails, Kuwait fails as a calorie crisis in, say, 14 days. So definitely important that some sort of overland resupply gets to Kuwait. From a strategic perspective over the next 48 hours, hey, make sure you like and subscribe because it really does help out this channel. If you have any questions, this is all about Iran. My name is Jonathan. I'm currently in the Middle East, so I'm bringing you updates directly from here. It's what, 7 a.m. here right now in the Middle East. So the U.S. strategy is now focused on an internal decoupling. They want to separate the Artesh, which is the regular army, from the IRGC Guard. So you've got the Iranian National Guard, basically, Revolutionary Guard Corps, which is the IRGC, and the regular army. And there are two opposing forces within the Iranian armed forces. By continuing to strike, the U.S. is continuing to strike IRGC targets while sparing the Artesh. They are inviting a military coup. So they're hoping that the regular army is going to basically rise up and take back their country from the IRGC. The Iranian strategy is resource desperation. They will likely strike subsea telecommunication cables, or try to anyways, and try to create a global financial blackout, hoping to force a ceasefire through internal chaos. So that's kind of the updates we have right there on the ground. I do have a lot more that I will cover. I just need to scroll up through my notes here. Bear with me. If you have any questions, please put them in the chat. Would love to hear your thoughts and questions and see what we have on the horizon here. Something that has interested me over the past few days here is the geopolitical reality. So there has been an attack in Cyprus, and there's been an attack in Saudi. So Cyprus is a member of the EU, and Saudi and Pakistan have an agreement, attack one, attack both. So I want to talk about alliances right now. I'm going to do so from two perspectives. One, just kind of a breakdown of the different alliances, and then from a World War I lens, because some historians have said that what led to World War I was all these overlapping alliances between countries, and it kind of affected, one country got attacked, so these people were obligated to protect them, but there was another agreement that if this person was attacked, and it just kind of compounded, and eventually the whole planet was at war. So scary, and we do have a similar situation here, so I would like to go through that. So in Cyprus, there was a drone impact at the RAF Qatari on March 1st, creating a unique legal friction point between the UK, the EU, and Iran. So this is a British base on an EU state attacked by Iran. So you have the sovereign base area, technically a British soil, not Republic of Cyprus territory. However, the debris and missiles crossed EU airspace. So that just tells you how far Iran can attack. I mean, they're firing missiles all the way up into Cyprus, into the Mediterranean. EU Article 42.7, the Mutual Defense Clause. This is the EU's version of NATO's Article 5. It states that if a member state is a victim of armed aggression on its territory, the other member states have an obligation to aid it. So this is definitely something that is a possibility. I'm not sure that the Europeans will bite, but kind of have to say that the Cyprus currently holds the rotating presidency of the EU Council. an escalation that impacts Cypriot civilian infrastructure, like the Mosul port, I'm going to butcher some of these names because I'm not as familiar with them, would force the European External Action Services to move from condemnation to operational support. We could see the first deployment of the EU battle group to the Eastern Mediterranean to protect energy assets. So there are energy assets in that region. And I mean, the EU, they've basically been pretty standoffish. They're more focused on Ukraine. We'll see how this does affect them, obviously, with LNG prices the way they are now due to LNG plant shutdowns and the Straits of Hormuz being shut down. This is a major impact. So next on the horizon, we have the Saudi-Pakistan Pact. So Article 5, essentially, of the Islamic world. On September 17th, 2025, the Saudi Arabia and Pakistani authorities signed a Seismic Strategic Mutual Defense Agreement, SMDA. This is basically like a sleeping giant within the conflict here. So the pact explicitly states an attack on one is an attack on both. Pakistan is a nuclear power. They have nuclear weapons. I think they're currently engaged against the Taliban, so I'm not sure. It's kind of interesting. The Russians can't really support Iran because they're kind of broiled down in Ukraine. The Pakistanis have this mutual attack agreement with Saudis, but they're kind of embroiled now with the Taliban. So we'll see how much they can support. They also have a pro-Iran protests in Pakistan right now. So this has resulted internally, they've got internal pro-Iran protests in Pakistan resulting in 24 deaths. So the Pakistani military is legally bound to Riyadh, but they have internal problems over this fact. As the IRGC dead hand continues to strike Riyadh and the eastern province, Pakistan may be forced to deploy its AAA, which is armor, artillery, and air assets to the Saudi border. More critically, Pakistan's role as a nuclear armed state provides a deterrence umbrella over Saudi Arabia that complicates Iran's long-range ballistic thought process, right? Their strategy. If Saudi refineries are leveled, Pakistan's conventional retaliation could involve the deployment of their F-4 Shaheen-1 missile batteries to Saudi soil. The GCC Joint Defense Agreement, the SHIELD activation, the 50th extraordinary meeting of the GCC on March 1st, 2026, officially activated the collective self-defense right under Article 51 of the UN Charter. So this is a shift. For 40 years, the GCC's Peninsula Shield Force was a paper tiger, if you will. Today, it is an active air defense network. So we're moving towards an integrated regional air shield. In the coming weeks, expect the UAE, Saudi, and Kuwait to operate under a unified radar picture managed by US CENTCOM. Any drone launched from Iran will be engaged by the closest battery, regardless of national borders. This effectively turns the Gulf into a single massive no-fly zone for Iranian assets. Also looking at how these agreements go, unlike previous administrations, the 2026 Trump White House views defense through the lens of the One Big Beautiful Bill Act. And the May 2025 Saudi-US Accords, they have like a pay-for-protection model. Saudi Arabia has invested billions in the US, AI, defense, tech, and in return, the US has deployed the largest naval presence since 2003 to this region. The U.S. is not fighting for democracy, make no mistake. In Iran, it's fighting for contractual integrity. If Iran destroys the assets the U.S. just sold to Riyadh, the U.S. response will be purely punitive and industrial. So we're looking at a business war where the goal is the total removal of competitors like Iran, ability to influence the market. So we've got quite an interesting perspective there. Now I'd like to kind of put this through a lens of World War I, because all these different alliances, how that could pull in other powers. This is a very similar parallel to World War I. If you're enjoying this content, I really appreciate that you join me. Make sure you like and subscribe so that I can put out regular updates, you'll get notified, and you can join me If you don't know, my name is Jonathan Paulette. I'm an oil and gas professional, upstream oil and gas. I'm currently in the Middle East, and so I'm on the ground getting kind of the latest updates that a lot in the West are not going to hear. So like and subscribe and be sure to share. It helps out this channel, it helps me out, and we're currently in a shelter in place, so I do have some time to do some research. So the historical lens here, 1914, the world didn't just decide to go to war, right? It was dragged into a bunch of, like a web of secret public treaties. When the Archduke Ferdinand was assassinated, a localized dispute between Austria-Hungary and Serbia triggered the dual alliance, Germany, which triggered the Franco-Russian alliance, which finally pulled in the UK via the Treaty of London. So the mirror that we have in 2026 is that the assassination of the Ayatollah on February 28th is kind of like the Sarajevo moment, right? It's like the Archduke Ferdinand. And you have these mutual defense dominoes that are going to begin falling into place. So the most dangerous modern alliance is the September 2025 Saudi-Pakistan Strategic Mutual Defense Agreement. From a historical context, much like Russia's commitment to Serbia, Pakistan's military has a blood bond with Riyadh. And Saudi Arabia funded the Pakistani nuclear program, the Islamic bomb. In return, Pakistan provided the conventional and unconventional muscle. The risk here is this pact explicitly states, there's a question, what's your opinion on Qatar in this war? I think Qatar, sorry, I'll stop this, just answer that question. I think Qatar is very well positioned to be able to manage through the siege economics with the Straits of Hormuz being closed and not getting any cargo in. They have a sovereign wealth fund, so they do have resources financially. They're also a very wealthy nation. I think the wealthiest nation per GDP in the world. And because of the 2017 embargo, they became self-reliant to produce as much as they could locally in terms of food. They also have desalination plants and a bunch of other infrastructure designed to allow them to be self-reliant. So I think Qatar is in a very good position. I think they would be ranked #1 of all the Gulf states in terms of being able to ride out this siege. Plus, you have the biggest U.S. military base in Qatar. And so the Americans have a very strong incentive to protect this country, this Qatar, for its ability to support the fleet, the U.S. fleet within the Arabian Gulf. I almost said Persian Gulf. So for the Arabs out there, I apologize. I'll get it right. All right. I'm going to have Persians on here that are upset that I'm not calling it the Persian Gulf, and I'm going to have Arabs on here that are not happy that I'm calling it, I'm going back and forth. I'll try. I can't make everybody happy. All right. So reaching a point where Pakistan may deploy some missile batteries to Saudi soil, this effectively moves a nuclear-armed state onto the front line of the Persian Gulf and creates a nuclear tripwire. What happened that Iran military X account is disabled? No idea. I don't usually use X, but maybe somebody in the chat can answer that question. So Cyprus and the EU, Article 42.7. So drone impacts, the RAF Akrotiri in 2026 version of the violation of the Belgian neutrality. So here's the trap. While Akrotiri is a British sovereign base, it sits in the Republic of Cyprus, which is an EU member state, so currently holding the EU Council presidency. The Mutual Defense Clause under Article 42.7, if an EU member is a victim of aggression, the rest are obligated to aid. So Iran's expansion of the war into Mediterranean forces, France, Greece, Italy, who all have massive energy stakes in the basins around Cyprus to move from mediators to combatants. And it's kind of like history repeating, right? Just as the UK was forced into World War I to protect Little Belgium, the EU is being pulled into the Gulf to protect Little Cyprus and the energy terminals of the Eastern Mediterranean. We also have a Trump MBS transactional kind of axis, if you will. Unlike the rigid alliances of the 20th century, the 2026 US-Saudi Accords are built on the One Big Beautiful Bill Act. This is kind of like mercenary diplomacy, if you will. The logic is that the U.S. is not fighting for an ideology here. It is fighting to protect contractual assets. So if Iran destroys the infrastructure the U.S. is paid to protect, the U.S. responds with total industrial liquidation. It is a war of asset protection that echoes British East India Company's private wars of the 18th century. So from a macro risk, a global fire map, if you will, we have Pakistan and Saudi. Attack one, you attack both. You have the EU, Cyprus, you attack an EU member state. The others are supposed to intervene. You have NATO, Iranian missile spillover into Turkish air would activate Article 5. And then you have the China, Iran. It's non-treaty, completely cut off, but they're completely cut off of Iranian oil. The island that is their main Iranian oil export facility was destroyed. So 90% of Iranian oil exports are basically cut off. And most of that goes to China. All right. So another aspect of this that I did want to talk about, I'm not American, but obviously American forces are in this region. So we got to think about U.S. politics. And this is kind of an interesting angle. I don't know if this was part of their thought process. However, I would imagine it is to a point. So you can't rule out that U.S. Elections play a part of this. We have the March primary, which in the U.S., the primaries have already started. So yesterday, March 3rd, was Super Tuesday. So while we're watching intercept missiles and drone attacks, millions of Americans were at the polls for primary elections. So they were held across 15 states, including Texas, North Carolina, and California. In the US system, primaries determine the flavor of the party for the November midterms. So again, this would be midterms this year, which is a major thing for the Trump administration. I think they're trying to get as much done as they can before the midterms. But the logic here being that President Trump is operating on a maximum strength mandate. By launching the strike on February 28th, just 72 hours before Super Tuesday, the administration successfully nationalized the primary. So it forces Republican challengers to align behind the commander-in-chief and put Democrats on the defensive, forcing them to choose between supporting a war against a terror state or appearing weak on national security on the day of the vote. So it could be a very strategic move, and we'll see what happens. So the election length, the administration needs oil prices to stay manageable through November to keep the House and Senate. The short, sharp shock. I should have practiced that before I typed it out. Should have practiced it. So it's in Iran, it's a gamble, right? If the administration can deliver a regime change and reopen the strait within 3 to 4 weeks, they will cruise into November as the peacemakers through strength. But if this drags into a 6-month quagmire, energy prices will crush the GOP's chances in the midterms, and this is why you hear the White House emphasizing that this is not an endless war, this is not Iraq. So we'll see how that plays out over the coming months. Obviously, being in the Middle East myself, I'm really hoping we have a very short conflict here, that the Iranian people will rise up and take back their country, that will have some kind of change over there for the good. I don't really care if it's good for the rest of the world. I care that, this is the Iranian, this is their country. So I hope that the majority of the people within Iran get what they want out of this. And if that's not in the best interest of the United States, well, too bad for them, right? It's their country. Let them have it. So polls versus policy. We've got 60% of Americans currently disapprove of the military action against Iran, viewing it as a war of choice. However, internal polling suggests that if the war leads to a collapse of gas prices by summer, the disapproval will flip to approval. And from the Muslim, Arab, American vote, surveys in key states like Georgia and Michigan show 80% opposition to the war. So this creates a swing state vulnerability for the administration in the general elections of 2028. But for the 2026 midterms, the GOP is betting on base mobilization over minority outreach. The chances are good in the long term, but it's going to take a very long time. Just answering this question from Critical View South Asia. What are the chances of a ceasefire between America, Israel, and Iran? It's definitely possible. Trump tends to do things kind of part way, right? Like he'll go in strong, try to work a deal. We're going to get a deal. You keep hearing that rhetoric, right? Oh yeah, we're going to make a deal. It's politics. It's diplomacy. It's not business. You're not making deals. I don't get that mentality. But so from that lens, I would imagine that he struck hard and fast, and then they're going to try and sue for peace and try to get something out of it. I've heard talks of, they want oil concessions or something out of this. We'll see. But I would prefer a very short-term conflict that concludes in the next few days, maximum a month, and beyond that, hard to say. If it goes beyond a month, I would say that it could go for much longer. So we've got some historical parallels here. The president's party almost always loses seats in the midterm. In 1918, President Woodrow Wilson asked for a mandate during World War I and was rejected by voters who were tired of the European mess. 2026 is kind of similar. Trump administration is attempting to break the midterm jinx by creating a rally around the flag effect. They're betting that a fast, victorious war is the only way to retain the House. Now, something else I would like to look into here. Make sure you like and subscribe because it really does help out this channel. My name is Jonathan. I'm currently in the Middle East. I'm an oil and gas professional, upstream oil and gas. So drilling, completions, that sort of thing. But I'm currently in the Middle East and I'm on the ground getting information from local sources as well as broader sources. I'm trying to pull from everywhere, using the power of AI to translate Chinese and Russian and Turkish and whatever I can, official statements into English so that I can get like a much broader perspective rather than just focusing on what CNN says, right? Appreciate those likes. Thank you very much. So the architecture of interdependence and comprehensive infrastructure. So throughout the Middle East, it's not just oil and gas. There are some critical there is critical infrastructure going through here, so I'll cover oil and gas, but also a few other things. From a raw materials perspective, in Bahrain, there is the world's largest single-site aluminum smelter. So it's active, it's under guard, intercepted 70 missiles this week, and aluminum prices surged to $3,200 per ton. Impacts are being aerospace, like Boeing and Airbus, as well as EV production. Other raw materials, there's out of Jebel Ali, we've got massive aluminum production and low carbon celestial tech. So this, there was a port fire at Jebel Ali that disrupted logistics and kind of disrupts, I guess, global luxury auto supply chains. Pipelines. We have the East-West pipeline through Saudi. It moves 5 million barrels a day from the Gulf to the Red Sea. So Arabian Gulf. I'll get it right. 5 million barrels a day from the Gulf to the Red Sea. It's currently operating at maximum capacity due to the avoidance of shipping through the Straits of Hormuz. It's the only safe exit for Saudi crude, currently the world's most vital pipeline. So you can imagine that that would be a strategic target of Iran. We also have the Dolphin pipeline, Qatar, UAE, Oman. This subsea gas link provides 2 billion cubic feet per day. It's critical risk. We've got possible dead hand, meaning Iranian independent cells of fighters that might target this, try to sabotage it. If cut, the UAE and Oman face immediate blackout of power and desalination. Desalination being their fresh water. So In the Middle East right now, it's not too hot, so it's okay. But as April comes around, the heat season starts to pick up and water becomes critical in this region. We've also got, if Russia and China again side with Iran, what will happen? I'm not sure that Russia, unless this gets extended out, I don't think Russia and China will enter the fight. I think Russia's bogged down in Ukraine, and they've pretty much exhausted their ability to exert export power. And they get a lot of their munitions from Iran. So if anything, this is going to hurt Russia more than anything. The Ukrainians also did a Black Sea attacked some refineries in Russia, and previous months they've done some I think they're down 20 or 30% in terms of production there. So they're basically being crippled in terms of what they can produce. And China, being that they get most of their oil and gas, or a large percentage of their oil and gas, from the Middle East, and a lot of that was cheap Iranian oil. Now that that's cut off, they're just basically putting out press releases like, please stop, let's let traffic resume through the Straits of Hormuz. We need oil and gas to movement through that region so that they can supply China. So I would say that if this gets prolonged, they'll move from diplomatic channels and trying to get parties to sue for peace to more hostile footing. They do have a very large military, although it is untested because they haven't been at war. So I hope that answered that question. Telecoms. So through the region of the Gulf, we've got undersea fiber optic cables connecting Europe and Asia. If these are attacked, they cannot be repaired because this is basically a kinetic zone. 25% of Asia-Europe internet traffic experiencing latency and rerouting if this line gets damaged. We also have the Omran cable, which connects Oman to Iran, likely tapped for intelligence at the moment. There's a regional data blackout for Iranian civilian sectors. And we have logistics, Jebel Ali, the port in Dubai, 10th busiest container port globally, functional paralysis, major carriers, Maersk, suspended bookings, and this is the transshipment heart of Asia that has stopped. Global retail just in time is basically dead in this region. The Khalifa port in Abu Dhabi, deepwater hub, that's the function of it. It's a deepwater hub for the IMEC corridor. It's operating under naval escort as of March 4th. The global impact would be that this is a primary entry point for India, Middle East, Europe trade, as well as the food supplies. So we have grain silos in Fujairah, and this is a major asset or hub, if you will. It's a strategic grain reserve for the UAE, secured and protected by the Omani Shield. It's critical to preventing immediate bread riots in the Gulf. So those are some of the major infrastructure, not just oil and gas, that is related to the Gulf region that could affect kind of like the broader perspective. If you're enjoying this type of content, make sure you like and subscribe. I will be bringing this type of content to you on a regular basis. I'm currently in the Middle East, and I'm kind of getting my information on the ground. So the wider impact, we got the ripple effect. So China, we have 80% of China's energy flows through the Straits of Hormuz. Beyond oil, China relies on Gulf ethylene and polyethylene for its plastics industry. No Gulf exports equals no Chinese manufacturing of consumer electronics. In India, the remittance crisis, India relies on the Gulf for 65% of its energy, but also for $90 billion in annual remittances. If the 9 million Indians in the Gulf are evacuated, the Indian rupee would experience a terminal devaluation. You can imagine all these people suddenly that are unemployed flooding back into India would be crippling to their economy. This is true for the rest of the foreign workers in the Middle East. I mean, right now we're all in a shelter in place. Most of the facilities and assets have shut down because we can't export, right? We can't fill a tanker and ship it through the Straits of Hormuz. So you have to shut down your refineries. You can't fill an LNG tanker because it can't go anywhere. So once everything's full, that's it. You've got to stop production. And then the strategic risk, you're going to look at maybe these facilities get attacked. So from that perspective, everybody stopped working. There's no civilian aviation through the region. There's a few government, like embassy arranged flights to get some people repatriated to their country of origin. However, it's very minimal, and with millions of foreign workers in the region, it's going to be hard to get them all out. But if they do all leave, then we're looking at a lot of people that are out of work in the oil and gas sector, including myself. So that would be good. All right, that's being selfish. I shouldn't talk like that. Europe. So with Qatar Energy, LNG, operating under force majeure, which is basically a contract clause that says if there's a war, they're no longer obligated to honor any contract agreements, and they're not going to be penalized for it. So Europe's gas storage is already low. It's being drained. Prices in Berlin, I haven't verified this, but I've heard that the prices in Berlin and Paris are up 400%. And the green transition is being abandoned for emergency coal activation. So again, another mistake by the Europeans. They moved away from nuclear. They didn't do their own oil extraction, LNG extraction, and they're completely reliant on source of energy that is imported and puts them at risk. Iraq, it's basically a landlocked victim. It's a ghost state in this fight, cannot export southern oil Basra through Hormuz. While the northern Turkey pipe exists, it cannot handle the volume. So Iraq faces a $10 billion per month revenue loss. The subsea frontier, so we got cables and pipelines. The Persian Gulf floor is a spaghetti map of critical infrastructure. You've got all sorts of pipelines and cables and everything running through the seafloor all over the Arabian Gulf. I said Persian Gulf. I'm going to get hate in the comments from the Arabs. Oh, well. What can you do? The Persians on here are going to be glad I said Persian Gulf for once. But so we got a sabotage risk. We've got the IRGC class midget submarines are specifically designed for subsea interdiction. So they don't need to sink a carrier. They just need to drag an anchor across the AAE1 cables or the Delphine cable pipeline, and then, they've disrupted. They're going to have major problems in the Gulf. So that's a sabotage risk for sure. We've got force majeure has been declared for all subsea maintenance contracts. If a cable snaps today, it stays snapped for the duration of the war, or at least until they can guarantee safety. So let's look at what's happened over the past 96 hours up till this morning. My notes are up to 6 a.m. So if something has happened since then I'm not sure. We'll have to update you later today. But if you're enjoying this content, make sure you like and subscribe. Subscribing helps because then you'll get notified. I'm going to be doing regular updates. All right, so day one, we had the decapitation of the leadership in Iran. There was coordinated U.S.-Israeli strikes in the Pasteur district in Tehran. The Ayatollah Ali Khamenei was martyred, killed in his compound. Over 1,000 targets were struck in 24 hours. The coalition force focused on neural centers, so IRGC headquarters, Ministry of Intelligence, and the defense batteries in western Iran. They also struck the nuclear heart in Isfahan and Parshin military complexes, sustained heavy damage to centrifuge assembly lines. Day two, the dead hand activation. Why is Trump angry with Spain? What issue does he have with Spain? I have no idea. I haven't heard that. I will have to look into that. Ask some good questions. It's the first time I've heard of it, so I'll look into that. So the dead hand activation, the lacking central command, the Iranian regional batteries activate decentralized dead hand protocols. This was authorized by Khamenei before he was killed. So this means that everybody's operating independently. Nobody's telling these independent cells what to do. I'm sure they had certain instructions leading up to it, but they're not waiting for some commander to give them instructions, which is going to make it difficult to stop all these missile and drone attacks. We've got ballistic missiles strike Israel, minimal success, and U.S. facilities in Kuwait and Bahrain. There was a strategic shutdown in Qatar, declaring force majeure. Straits of Hormuz becomes a no-go zone for insurance. That was day 2. Day 3, kind of an energy and water siege. We have civilian infrastructure. Iran shifts to infrastructure asymmetry, so strikes on Ras Laffan in Qatar and Mesaid power water plants. So this was like the LNG, I think it was a tank farm in Ras Laffan, and then the desalination water plants in Mesaid. But I think that desalination plant is for industrial purposes. I don't know if it supplies civilian infrastructure. The Gulf, U.S.-Israeli forces began targeting, I'm not really sure how to pronounce this, Basij, if there's any Persians or Iranians on here. You can correct me, but law enforcement command basically headquarters across 20 Iranian cities to weaken the regime's ability to suppress internal dissent. The successor, wow, I've been talking for too long. And Riyadh, the salvo on day 4, March 3rd into March 4th. So yesterday, 2 Iranian drones hit the U.S. Embassy in Riyadh. We had succession news that a new Ayatollah had been selected, and he was the son as the 3rd supreme leader. The move is intended to move continuity to the hardline base. So from an overview, we've got the Iranian military has been 80% degraded, according to U.S. sources. Air defenses are dark. Naval HQ in Bandar Abbas is destroyed. Nuclear is functionally set back. Natanz, Fordow, Isfahan research centers largely offline. From a maritime perspective, we've got the Straits of Hormuz are closed. 150 plus tankers are stalled. 11 Iranian hulls sunk in the Gulf of Oman. So the 11 Iranian hulls being the Iranian Navy. Civilian water, critical alert. We got some desalination plants that have been attacked, one in Qatar and one in Israel, sustaining damage. And from a logistics perspective, the Jebel Ali port operating at 10% capacity following port fires. See, the Iranians are actually doing a really great job, although most of their missiles are getting taken out. I actually did a video yesterday about the cost of war, basically, so you should go check that out. Talking about the cost of these munitions versus the amount of people that have been killed in this conflict. It's kind of crazy to me when you think about it. You'll send 100 drones or 100 missiles and you'll have like 1 person killed. So if you're measuring the conflict's success in terms of deaths, as seems to have been the case in the past, then it seems like a very unsuccessful strategy. However, if you measure success in terms of infrastructure or impact to facilities, water desalination, shutting down ports, then this is a very successful strategy. So we'll see how that plays out as well. In Iran, we had celebrations reported in Tehran and Mashhad in the nights of February 28th. However, some of the streets remained pretty quiet under forceful deterrence. The IRGC, the Guard is no longer a monolith, so we're seeing a junta pivot. The remaining IRGC commanders are the ones who pushed this new Ayatollah into power this morning, and they are effectively running a military government behind a clerical figurehead. The regular army in Iran, this is the Black Swan, I guess you could call it. Intelligence suggests that the Artesh is refusing to fire on protesters in some provinces, notably in Kurdistan. If the Artesh and IRGC begin kinetic engagement against each other, the Islamic Republic enters a civil war phase by next week. So there are 2 different military factions, the IRGC and the Artesh, both Iranian, but one is ideologically driven and one is there for the Iranian people. The IRGC being the ones that killed 40,000 of their civilians, protesters, over the since December. So, well, it's not World War III yet, but it might get there. We'll see. So, the U.S. strategy is basically kinetic decapitation followed by economic attrition. So the goal is to make the regime so expensive and dangerous to maintain that the Iranian people or the regular army overthrow it from within. Trump even announced that he wants the Iranians to, we're here to help, we're going to do what we can, and the Iranians are supposed to rise up and take back their country. The Iranian strategy is a dead hand, kind of independent factions and holding a global ransom. So by hitting the world's oil and gas, they're trying to force China and Europe to pressure the US into a ceasefire. It's a hostage taking of the global economy, but also incredibly smart. They know that they can't go head to head with the US in terms of their military power, but they can certainly cause a lot of pain to the economy, but also to millions of people. Make sure you like and subscribe. And my name is Jonathan Plett. I'm an oil and gas professional currently in the Middle East. I've been working in upstream oil and gas for 25 years and spent 15 years working internationally, 11 of that in 11 different countries, and about a decade in and around the Middle East and North Africa. So I've got a lot of experience with the local populations and cultures and whatnot. Very good people in the Middle East, by the way. They get a lot of bad press in the Western media, but a lot of respect for them. They have their priorities right in terms of family values rather than profiteering, profit and greed, right? All right, so now I'd like to look at this siege of Hormuz and the logistics of transitioning from moving cargo through the Straits of Hormuz into the ports in the Gulf, and instead transitioning over to other ports and offloading cargo from vessels onto trucks and transferring them overland into the other Gulf states. So the U.S. Fifth Fleet is supposed to be doing a convoy escort through the Straits of Hormuz. So that's the first part of this. It's still pending. It's on high alert. Despite rumors, there are currently no active merchant convoys transiting the Straits. The Fifth Fleet is dispersed from Mina Salman in Bahrain to the open Arabian Sea to avoid being sitting ducks for the IRGC ballistic missiles. There's a convoy protocol, but it's the Operational Sentinel Guard, for all intents and purposes, is the name. It's the escort plan. It's being held until the U.S. Navy completes a mine-sweeping audit of the Muzandam Peninsula corridor. Until the U.S. can guarantee the channel isn't basically peppered with smart mines, the cargo is currently trapped inside the Gulf and will stay trapped. From a Bahrain perspective, following the missile strike on the Fifth Fleet Service Facility, the base is a threat level Delta. Only essential kinetic operations are launching. So we have a terrestrial lifeline. There's going to be port congestion as we reroute cargo from going through the Straits of Hormuz into Jebel Ali and other ports in the Persian Gulf or Arabian Gulf to other ports such as UAE, Oman, and into the Red Sea. The Red Sea is kind of tricky because to go up through the into the Red Sea, you're going past Yemen, and you have the Houthis there, and they had committed to potentially attacking any Western vessels that would, or anybody that would be going around that way, up into the ports such as Jeddah, to be able to offload and truck overland into the Gulf. But it is one corridor potentially. So we've got some bottlenecks. Salalah and Sahar and Oman, these are now the Hormuz gates. Every major carrier from Maersk to MSC is attempting to discharge Gulf-bound cargo at those ports. Congestion at those ports is 300% capacity, and ships are waiting 5 to 7 days just for a berth. So you can imagine that you're trying to get your goods into the Gulf there's delays, 5 to 7 days just to get a berth. Then you got to be offloaded, and you have to have enough trucks to be able to move that cargo across land, which is going to take even more time, to the various Gulf states. And assuming that we don't have any kind of damage to the roads that would be allowing that movement of vehicles. Jeddah and Yanbu in the Red Sea, these ports are now the primary entry for Saudi and UAE cargo. They're operating 24/7, but the land bridge to Riyadh and Dubai is being throttled by a shortage of available heavy haul trucks and drivers willing to enter the Kinetic theater. Overland from Turkey is another option, basically the northern lifeline. So the route cargo is moving from Mersin in Turkey through Jordan through Saudi Arabia. So this is currently the most viable overland route for European and Turkish food supplies. Thousands of trucks are currently backlogged at the Al Haditha Saudi-Jordan border. The Iraq gap we have is the development road. Turkey to Basra is currently disabled due to security risks in Iraq and the proximity of the IRGC-linked militia. From a food security standpoint, we got siege economy rankings. I took a look at this to see what was the food security like, and kind of ranked the Gulf states based on how much infrastructure they had to be able to be self-reliant and not have to import all their food. So number one on the list is Qatar. They had a blockade in 2017 where a lot of the I don't know why I'm getting this. Sorry. I'm getting a live will end in a few minutes, so apparently I'm getting cut off. Okay. So in Qatar, we've got the blockade, they're blockade veterans. So since 2017, Qatar was built on 100% self-sufficiency in dairy and poultry and massive vertical farms. They have the most robust siege playbook in the world. This is due to, in 2017, basically they were sanctioned and cut off from all the Gulf states. Nobody would trade with them. Nobody would do business with them. The only people that would be Kuwait and Oman, and I believe Iran as well. But obviously Iran nowadays is off the table. And I would imagine they're not going to be importing food from Oman because they're on the other side of the Straits of Hormuz, or Kuwait because they're even more desperate position. So they're not going to be able to help one another. And but Qatar is in the best spot possible. Next on the list would be Saudi Arabia. Massive landmass, high self-sufficiency in dates, milk, eggs, vegetables. Their Vision 2030 Agritech has created a massive internal buffer. UAE is kind of mid-range, number 3. They've got a lot of money, but they've also invested in vertical farming, but they're still importing 85% of their food. So they're vulnerable to a prolonged trucking blockade, but they're also closest to Oman and the ports on that side. So it's potential that they also have their own port on that side as well. So long as there's no drone strikes in the ports on the UAE on the Gulf of Oman side, some people correct me and say it's Sea of Oman. So again, another geographical dispute on what to call things. Persian Gulf, Arabian Gulf, American Gulf versus Mexico, the Gulf of Mexico versus the Gulf of America. All right. We've got Oman next on the list. Fisheries and dates. So they're resource rich, but logistics poor. Plenty of fish and dates, but processed staple foods rely heavily on basically being shipped in, and it's currently under drone threat. In Salalah, I heard a lot of the workers were demanding to leave because of the attack that they had there. But I don't know, maybe that was just propaganda. We'll see. Make sure you like and subscribe. It does really help me out. If you have any questions, I'm looking up once in a while to see, but I'm trying to read as well. So, so Bahrain, high vulnerability. It's a very small island. I lived there for a while. Not a whole lot there. Really appreciate that. Thank you very much. Kind of a small island, and the only connection they have to mainland is through the causeway between Bahrain and Dammam. So if that were to get severed, it's going to cause a problem, but also it's only one road in. So you can imagine the congestion there as everything becomes trucked in rather than directly to the port in Bahrain. So limited local production and direct kinetic proximity to the conflict. So they're very highly reliant on the Saudi land link. In Kuwait, it's very livestock limited. The Kuwaitis are the most exposed. They are highly urbanized, negligible agriculture, and situated at basically the dead end of the Gulf. They are 99% dependent on the Saudi land bridge. So pretty graphic for them. I'm sure the other Gulf states would step up and help them a little bit, but if you've ever been to Kuwait, it's a very small country. There's not much there. It seems like the whole country is just a big city. And then they have their oil fields, city and oil fields, and that's it. So the sea to land transition has turned the Arabian Peninsula into a logistical bottleneck. So we're moving from a world of global flows and trade to a world of basically little fortresses. And the real danger isn't just lack of food, it's also turning natural gas to run desalination plants to create fresh water. If the overland routes provide the food but the gas halts, this kills desalination and the cities remain uninhabitable. Saudi Arabia and Qatar are the only two nations with the internal reserves to survive a multi-month siege. So it could turn into a humanitarian crisis. We will see. We also have basically the update from today over the past 24 hours. I did want to focus on that, what we have up until 6 a.m. this morning, or we're getting close to 8 o'clock now, so might be a couple hours out of date, but we've got the last 24 hours, I would say. We've got 2 suicide drones that impacted the U.S. Embassy in Riyadh. This was a fire and triggered a region-wide diplomatic lockdown. 9:15 a.m. March 3rd, there was Omani expansion. So the port of Salalah was attacked, which is a critical port. It was struck by an Iranian ballistic missile. I'd also heard it was a drone, so I'm not entirely sure which one it is. This was a logistical decapitation move to stop the rerouting of cargo. So the Iranians are actively trying to choke off the rerouting of cargo vessels to basically create a humanitarian crisis in the Middle East. 1 a.m. there was Tehran night strikes. I didn't hear any strikes last night. Maybe I slept through it. Maybe I'm getting used to it. But every day there's been missiles flying overhead and intercepts. And it's very effective. What they're doing is striking very strategically, and they're just hoping that some will get through. Not a whole lot of deaths so far in this conflict, but a lot of damage to critical infrastructure on both sides. Tehran night strike. So they had a third wave of stealth fighters, targeted the state media headquarters and the Basij Command Center in Tehran. The city is currently without power in several districts. We also have a succession leak. Intelligence assets confirmed that Mujtaba Khomeini has been named the third supreme leader by a junta of experts under the IRGC protection, though he has not appeared in public. I can't imagine he's going to want to appear in public because, yeah, it'd be a little bit scary, right? The Ayatollah was murdered, and then his successor within 12 hours was killed, and now this guy gets named to be the next supreme leader. Yeah, I'd be hiding in a bunker too. So, leadership, Ayatollah has been killed in the opening strikes. And along with him, his AFGS chief, Mousavi, and the intelligence minister were neutralized. The infrastructure, we've got 90% of Iran's fixed air defenses and its naval headquarters in Bandar Abbas has been destroyed. Iranian retaliation. Iran is focused on economic hostage-taking by hitting Ras Laffan and Ras Tanura in Saudi, and they have successfully spiked global energy prices. And we have massive protests across Kurdistan and Tehran and other regions where the IRGC is using maximum force, but coalition strikes on the police headquarters have crippled the regime's command over its internal security forces. So that's my update for you. I hope you found this useful. I'm going to be continuing to do these types of updates, make sure you like and subscribe. Subscribe is important, and go check out some of my other videos because I've been doing regular updates, and I'm also doing commentary that are not just updates but also my thoughts. Like I've been getting questions about, is now a good time to become, get into the oil and gas sector as a career? And I would say, sure, on a temporary basis, you're going to see spikes in employment for other exporters like in the United States, where they've got to pick up some of the slack by putting oil and gas into production to basically cover what's not coming out of the Gulf region now. But that could be temporary, and sometimes it takes time to ramp those projects up. As well, if you do get a lot of repatriation from the people that are in the Middle East right now, those people are going to be looking for work, and they're going to be taking those jobs back in their home countries when they do get there. So yeah, we'll see how long this conflict goes. I'm really hoping for a short time. And you want information from the American side, Frank? Okay, well, I can do some research in my next live. I can see what the Americans have to say. I do know that there are a lot of press conferences under the Trump administration, so I'll have to dig into those and see what I can find out. All right, I appreciate everybody tuning in this March 4th, 2026. It's 8 a.m. here in the Middle East, so we've got a full day ahead of us to see as things unfold, and as they do, I will be sure to give you regular updates, and I'll do another live to cover everything that's happened, probably tomorrow morning. So till then, stay safe, take care, and as always, thanks for watching.